Okay, so this is going to be my response for question one in the A group for the exam regarding playing educational games, and I'm going to come back to Minecraft for this one. Um, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of answer the questions in the question, which are to talk about how this game could be used as a part of student learning and sort of how it changes the learning environment in the classroom. I'm going to talk a little bit about SLOs and GLOs sort of as they relate to the experience. I'm going to mention briefly, or I'm going to touch on some of the C Century 21 skills, so like collaboration, communication, critical thinking, and creativity. And then I'm going to sort of talk about how students can really show you what they know, or they can talk about what they know. And as I do this, I'm just going to kind of walk around the world and give you some stuff to think about. You've seen a lot of my base, I guess is what I'm going to call it, my home base in my previous absent pedagogy video. So I'm not going to spend too terribly much time talking about, this place. I'll ask that you refer to other videos if you can't quite see the things that I'm talking about here, because I'm just I'll craft a boat and then get on my way. And so I guess the first thing I'm going to talk about being how this could be used as part of the student experience and the learning environment is that this is a game where math isn't, or any kind of educational topics aren't really the focus of the game. It's just kind of something that happens in there, but it's interesting in that it's students can interact with it and they can see there is some cause and effect in the game. And depending on how well you use some concepts or what you want to build, there's mathematical lessons to be brought out of experiences in this game. I would say to check up on the SAMR video if you want a little more elaboration on sort of what I mean by that. In regards to SLOs and GLOs, well, it's kind of tough to say which one is more available to be talked about in this game. Like, and for example, the general outcome of, let's say, developing number sense, which exists. As you saw when I did my crafting and made this boat that I'm in, you see, concrete representations of what numbers are. So you could have 4 blocks and paste them out and be 4 blocks. And there's also a little subscript, so 24, 3, 27 down to 25. So we can see that I had 27. I took 3 out and now I have 24 left over. And just there's tons of little interactions every time you open your inventory screen and want to build or craft something. You will be forced to interact with numbers in this way. As for SLOs, once again, if you want to hear a little or see a little more demonstration of what I'm talking about, I'm going to refer to the Hitting Rock Bottom video in my absent pedagogy playlist, because there's SLOs that are available in the game, and that crafting mechanic, directly solves or directly applies to linear equations. And I'm just kind of showing you as I'm walking around. These are just this is stuff that I didn't build that the game just generates, but there is NPCs in this village that I can trade certain amounts of some item and get other items that I have a hard time finding or building. So there's even more. Oh, look, see, they're having a little congregation here, and they're all going to look at me. So I'm going to get away from them right now. They're not harmful or anything, but they're just kind of creepy. Yeah, so there's SLOs that you wouldn't necessarily have to set out to create, but it exists in the game, and it's a platform to talk about what a student would have to do, or sort of what's going on to make the game act the way that it does, or to make the gameplay experience be the way that it is. Now I'm gonna sort of mention the Century 21 skills: collaboration, communication, critical thinking, and creativity. Well, communication wise, we've got no limit to group size really, so we can talk to one another. Like we could talk, and it would tell me Kicking Tail's my my username, but we could have online sort of chat room discussions with one another as we're building stuff. We could talk about what's going on in Minecraft outside of what's going on in Minecraft. So the example of if I hop in this boat and my friends are playing in that village, and I hop this boat and decide to go over to these mountains, I can come back and tell them what I found, which is, I think, a pretty cool communication skills. Um, my critical thinking skill, which is another C21 skill, is also something that you need to think critically if you're going to survive in survival mode. Because if you don't, if you're trying to grow food, say in the farm example, and you're not saturating your crop that you're growing for for my automatic farm, well, then your crop's not going to grow, and then you're going to starve. So you have to think about, well, what kind of things happen that make the crop grow, and then you kind of go out from there. And even within that, asking that critical thinking question, there's another example of area in the game. And then finally, I'll just kind of circle my village to talk about creativity here. And I think that nothing really much needs to be said about that as you're watching my trees with my tree house into my wizarding room to the minecart that's going to eventually go to a portal into the underworld, past my monster fighting room and my automatic farms and stuff. I think we'll just kind of close the book on what kind of creativity you can express in this game, because it's really limited to what you want to do as a person or as a student. And if you're super tech savvy, there's modding communities where if you wanted to learn about modding and changing a game, you could get very, very creative with your experience and even start to learn some code and things like that. And then kind of how does a student express their learning? Well, they build stuff, and then you can directly ask them to show them building something for you. And kind of back to the example of the 3D object, you could specify, show me an object that has a side, a base, a width and a height of this, and have them build it for you. Or you could just look at what they build and ask them questions about it, and they could tell you sort of how they thought about the things that they did there. And so, how they thought about why they were building things the way they were, or what they put in the game, and the reasons why the buildings are arranged the way they are. And I'll kind of give you an example as we come back towards my town. Is that I mentioned earlier in another one of my absent pedagogy videos that this was built on an island, and creatively what happened was I kind of appeared somewhere over there, and I walked and I saw this island, and I thought to myself, well, I want to exist in this world and make as little of a footprint in Minecraft as I can. So it's kind of sustainability in Minecraft, and that has forced me to think creatively about how I'm going to solve that problem. And it ended up being those nodes and those offshoots of this kind of main island that's surrounded in that green stuff that the arrow is focused on right now. And just to conclude this, I just want to say that, I don't even remember why I built this, probably just because it was fun, but it took knowledge of building shapes and wanting to think about where I wanted to place things and the reason why to do it. And I think I'll sort of conclude by saying that in a classroom with 30 kids, I don't think that that's where the real educational value in this game is forcing kids to play it. If you're not a gamer, you probably won't enjoy doing something like this. But if you're talking about what it brings to education outside of the classroom, well, my experiences with high school, but in junior high and younger, kids love this game. There's lots and lots of people who go to every school who you could talk to them about math and things that they're doing in Minecraft, and it would give you a space to teach them something, which wouldn't exist if they didn't play the game. And it would just be another really good way to interact and to reach students. And if you wanted to assign, a kid who makes a lot of Minecraft stuff homework that they would like to do, you could probably get them to build something in Minecraft over the weekend, and they would put a lot of time and effort into building it for you, and then they could show you either, in a by recording the video like I've done here, or screenshots, or they could even just tell you about it in another way. And it's just a way to connect to kids and sort of give them an opportunity to explore and create, and it takes them into a place where they can do those things.